Good morning, everybody. KT here with Wise Images Photography, and I wanted to say thank you so much for tuning in today and welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, what we are all about is learning about nature photography and going on some fun-filled adventures. And today we are going to be learning about the histogram. We're going to be learning about what is it, why do I even want to know about this thing, and how am I going to use it? So the definition of a histogram is defined as a graph that measures the luminosity of an image by representing the frequency of each tone as a value on a graph. So basically, what does this mean? It means that there is a graph that you can look at that will show you how bright or dark your image is, so that way you can check to see if you are on the right track with your image, if you are overexposing it, underexposing it, or exposing it properly. So why is this important? Because when you are out and about and you are trying to look at the back of your LCD screen, it's not very accurate because you have the sun going on. So maybe the sun is shining bright lights onto your back of your LCD screen. So you're not going to be able to really tell if your picture is exposed properly or not. Also, you can change the brightness of your LCD screen. So if you have it too low or too bright, that could be deceiving. But if you have the histogram and you look at the histogram, then you will be able to tell if it is properly exposed or not. And the reason why you can tell if it is properly exposed or not is because it is going to show you from a scientific standpoint how much light from all that data that it collects to show you the accurate representation of what's happening with your image. So by understanding the histogram and being able to look at the histogram, it's going to help you to know if what you're photographing is matching the scene that you just took. So let's go ahead and start off with, what does a normal photograph look like? Let's go ahead and take our attention to the screen, shall we? Let's go ahead and look in the upper right hand corner. Let's go ahead and look at that histogram. On the far left, you have your blacks, and then you have your shadows. The next section is going to be where your midtones are. Then you are going to go ahead and have your highlights and then your whites. Now, as you can see, this is pretty much a perfectly lit image. It's got a nice bell curve to it. Sometimes for a nice lit image, we'll say that it kind of has an even kill, and then it's going to have what we call no clipping on the left or the right. So what do I mean by clipping? I'm going to go ahead and take this perfectly exposed image, and I'm going to go ahead and grab my exposure, and I'm going to pull my exposure all the way down. So let's say, for example, if I was out in the field and I saw this when I looked at the histogram, I'd be like, oh man, that picture is underexposed because all of my data is going over to the far left. I can also see that on the far left-hand side that some of it has been clipped. And what I mean by that is it's what we call peaking. It's clipped. Let's go ahead and click on this little triangle. It will show in the blue what has been clipped. So basically that's where you're seeing that true black. So the tips of the little deer's ear, we're also seeing black eyes, completely black. And then also part of the nose is also clipped as well. Now, that is showing an underexposed image. So if you're out and about and this is what you saw and you're in the middle of the daytime, your image is underexposed. Now let's do the opposite. If I pull it to the far right, you can see that all of my data goes over to the far right. You can see that we have lots of clipping over here on the far right edge. When I click on my triangle, you can see all the red is showing me all the areas that have been blown out. And those would be areas that you would not be able to get that detail back if you shot like this. If it's the middle of the day and this is what your graph is looking like, then, and you know, you're shooting greenery, and this is what it's looking like, you definitely have an overexposed image. Let's go ahead and bring this back to the middle. So now you can tell everything's back to normal. It makes sense for the scene. You don't have any crazy dark areas. You don't have any crazy white areas. You're shooting on some green. So having this nice bell curve here, that makes sense for the scene. Let's go and take a picture of an image that by the graph it's going to be underexposed. But when you look at it, you're going to realize that it makes sense for the scene. Take a quick look at Mr. Bowman. Mr. Bow is being photographed in the middle of the night. So it makes sense that you're going to have all that data on the far left. So there's nothing to really worry about. Yes, there's lots of black clipping there, but it's nighttime, so it makes sense. So it's really not a big deal. What about something that looks overexposed on the graph, but is okay? Let's go ahead and take a peek at this image. You can see all the data is on the far right-hand side. Nothing's really clipping, so we're good to go. There is actually a little bit of a clip there. You can see right on the edge of the bird's wings are a little bit clipped. Let me click on it to make it stay there. And you can see the red. And a little bit of areas here in the water are also clipped. But even though it's showing that this is overexposed, it makes sense because you have the sun coming in. You have a lot of white in the bird. There's a lot of reflection off of the water. So in this case, it's not considered overexposed because the image is very white, very bright in general. So that's why it's good to understand your histogram, because if it was more blown out, we'll just blow it out just to blow it out. Like maybe if it was like that, then we would go, oh, maybe that's a little bit too, overexposed at that point. And you might want to go ahead and drag it down just a little bit and try not to get some clipping, so you could adjust your settings while you're out and about in the field. If you are finding this video helpful, please make sure that you guys go and hit that like button for me. How do you find your histogram on your camera? I wish I could say that I knew how to be able to find your histogram on your camera. Every single camera is different. Some cameras will have a live view already set up. It's kind of like a factory setting. I know Canon's, sometimes you can hit the info button or playback 2 times and then hit like the info button or something, and that will go ahead and get you to the histogram. I know with Nikon's in particular, you have to find it in your menus first, and then you would click overview for your histogram, and then that would give you all the wonderful details that you have here. And when you hit up or down on your dial, you have all your wonderful information plus your histogram right there. Now, but like I said, go ahead and check your manual out, because your manual will be able to be specific to yours and tell you how to go ahead and find your histogram. I also want to go ahead and give a quick shout out to Miguel. Miguel, thank you so much for suggesting a couple of ideas for fun-filled adventures for us. Miguel suggested that we check out Vero Beach if we want to go ahead and check out some osprey, as well as Coral Gables if we want to go ahead and check out the burrowing owls, which I think is a fantastic idea. I don't know when I'll be able to get down there or over there, but I do have them on the books because I think they would be fun-filled adventures for us to go on. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I really greatly appreciate it. If this is something that you found value in, you liked it, you dug it, whatever, go ahead and make sure that you guys go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Go ahead and hit that notification bell so that way you don't miss any other episodes. If there's something that you guys would like to learn about, please go ahead and drop that in the comment section below, and I will check it out. And until next week, see you later, alligator. Now, if you get a little clipping on the left and a little clipping on the right, that is okay. But you don't want the extremes, because if you get the extremes, then it's really hard to go ahead and recover that image at that point. Because if it's too far to the left, what's going to happen is this is going to clip on your blacks, and then when you try to raise that exposure when you're inside of Lightroom, you're going to get a lot of noise and grain. Whereas if the image is on the far right, because you overexposed it and it's got that clipping going on, you're going to lose details in those whites and those highlighted areas.